by show of hands, does this feel like your life at all? Have you ever used seasonality to explain what happened to your performance this year? Don't be shy. I've done it. Thank you. One truth there is to ASO is that somehow there's always more stuff affecting our performance than things that we cause ourselves. And while the relationship between paid UA and ASO has long been documented, and we're still waiting to hear on Apple and Google about algorithm changes, I figured we might as well talk about seasonality in App Store marketing, so ASO and ASA, and even a little more, to kind of go over how this is actually something that we can deal with. So you might have heard a ton of things about seasonality already. What I'm going to try to talk about is helping you identify seasonality, meaning know when it's seasonality and how much, how to maximize your marketing efforts when a seasonal peak is coming, and share a few ideas about also how to deal with those times when seasonality is not in your favor. Before I get there, if you're wondering why I'm talking about this today, it's because I've been working in App Store marketing for 8 years. I've been trying to come up with useful ideas and working with different apps and games. So hopefully what I share with you today is going to give you ideas. I think my main goal, if anything, is for you to feel like there's things you can do after you've seen this presentation. My name is Simon, by the way. I work at AppTweak. AppTweak is an App Store marketing platform. It's probably known most for the ASO features, but it offers a wide range of tools, including market intelligence, Apple Search Ads Campaign Manager, Review Manager, and recently we launched a new feature in our Reporting Studio tool, which allows you to build much faster these dashboards that you probably have to create in Google Looker Studio by being able to mix through a simple integration data from AppTweak, but also App Store Connect, Google Play Console, as well as your favorite MMP, starting with AppFlyer or Adjust. If you want to learn more about AppTweak, there is a booth at the ground floor where you can meet my colleagues. For the rest of today, let's talk about seasonality. If you need a definition, I looked for one that I could actually endorse. This is the closest I got. Seasonality is a variation in downloads, sessions, revenue, basically pick your favorite KPI. And we're talking about a variation that occurs periodically or cyclically throughout the year and due to external factors. And these external factors in turn may actually influence how you execute your marketing strategies. So how can we find it? Well, we can look at an app's data throughout the year. For the sake of the example, I picked Candy Crush. And here these are just estimates. We can see that month on month, downloads go up or down. If we look at just 1 year, there's not so much we can see. But now if we start looking at 2 years of data, and I would invite you to look at even more, we can start spotting some trends. We can see that February is usually a month where downloads go down. So we could say there's fewer days in February than January. Such a decrease may be more than just having fewer days to collect installs. There's months where we see, on the contrary, upward trends. So for instance, in the summer, we see that downloads go up, and we might be tempted to say that feels like it's happening around summer holidays. October, well, you have only the monthly view here, but we could see it feels like Halloween is a big moment, Christmas in December. So No big news here, but if you want to know when seasonality is affecting your app, you can start by looking at your own data and simply looking at multiple years in a row, trying to identify patterns. Now, to do it maybe a little bit better, two things to consider. One, seasonality should not be affecting only your app. Look at how it affects your competitors, your category. If you see a pattern that affects multiple people, it's probably there's an external factor at play. If there's something that affects only your app, well, either your app has a very specific seasonality because of a theme, for instance, or it's just not seasonality at all, and you want to talk to your paid UA team, for instance, to know what they've done. The other thing you should look at is how seasonality is local and not global. This is going to be one of my main themes for the day. Seasonality is something that doesn't happen in the same way everywhere in the world. So for my first example, I just had a look at how downloads were affected by seasonality in the travel category in different countries. If we look at weekly seasonality, we all have the idea that certain apps will download more during the week, certain apps more during the weekend. Well, if we look at travel, actually, in Brazil, most popular day is Monday. In Egypt, it's Thursday. In the US, in Japan, it's Saturday. So is it because everyone doesn't actually have their weekend at the same time of the week? I'll let you ask. But basically, these are things to consider. Same when we look at the yearly trends. Yearly in Brazil, downloads for travel max are at their max in December and in January. If we compare it to the US starts towards mid-May and pushes until July. Egypt and Japan start rather in July, push into August. Usually this is because people don't have summer in the same time, but summer may not be the only reason here. It's just a way to illustrate how if you're going to be looking for when is seasonality affecting my app, you shouldn't expect that seasonality is affecting it everywhere in the same way. Because if you're a travel app, that's global, well, you should see spikes in downloads in the summer, especially if the US is your main market. But if you start thinking, oh, that means we also need to make big pushes in Brazil in the summer, well, you might want to think again. Another thing where we can debate is this seasonality, but where you need to be aware of external factors. There are situations where seasonality is not necessarily recurring. Has anyone become obsessed with a game of chess back in 2020? Statistically, there should be at least one of you, and that would be why. Pop culture in general is something that's going to affect potentially your app performances, your game performances. There's a new Gladiator movie coming out soon. If you have a game that's Gladiator themed, ancient Rome themed, you might have an opportunity to just get a little nice wave to ride. So I took the example of the Queen's Gambit first because this is something that was definitely booming in 2020. In 2020, there was more than one thing that arrived on Netflix or on ESPN if you are in the US. And something that we saw is that in general, the search traffic that relates to elements that are key to a TV show, that are key to content in general and to what people engage with, those have an impact. And sometimes it's not something that you would think about immediately. I'm somewhat of an NBA fan. I was super interested in The Last Dance. I thought NBA apps would be the apps that first blew up when that happened. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was sneakers apps because people were interested in buying Air Jordan shoes. So in these kind of things, these are going to be waves that are harder to predict, that you can't always anticipate are going to affect you, because it might not be something directly related to your business, but if it relates to one part of your app, if the content matches one theme that people like, these are things that you want to look at. And the reason why I will call them seasonal effects is because TV shows and sports literally present themselves as having seasons. Last thing that can be interesting when we're researching when are seasonal moments available for us to find opportunities, is that some apps, usually with very high market power, can manufacture their own. Amazon has created Prime Days. I don't know if Temu will have the same. I don't know if Shein will have the same. But what's interesting in these kind of situations is that we can see there's an effect in what people search for in the App Store. And while it shouldn't be considered seasonality for Amazon, technically they are creating this. This is not an external factor. Well, other apps can buy the keyword Amazon. Might not be cheap, but if you're in the Apple search ads game, then you might have a chance to just say, oh, we know there's going to be a peak in search, and we can try to move in on this peak, on this search movement, and we can actually go after chances to see more traffic coming to our store page. So if you've identified the seasonal peaks, or if you know a seasonal peak is coming, what can you do? I started researching this by going to the data science team at AppTweak and asking them the question, can we actually say if seasonality affects generic keywords or branded keywords more? We had a look at the keywords that were having the most fluctuations. So you had the top 10 before. Here you have larger trends with the top 100, the top 200. If we look at the top 100 keywords in the US in 2023, only 5 of the 100 keywords with the highest search volume actually are generic. If we look now in terms of keywords that have the biggest variation in terms of max reach, which would be the actual impressions, it's only 6. If we look, though, in terms of those who move the most with the search popularity score metric that is given by Apple, it's 47%. And so what this tells us is that when you're going to be looking for search traffic that relates to a seasonality event you want to go after, you might be at first able to find generic terms that are going to grow more easily. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't invest in brand, because brands tend to have a higher baseline, which is why their volumes don't vary as much and you don't always think as them as much. Now, there is one issue with the methodology so far here, is that if you look, you'll tell me these look a lot like trends, or these look a lot like apps that were launched in 2023. Or relaunched, if we look at Twitter and X. And you'd be right. That's why I actually also went to have a look on a much more recent case and on keywords that were specifically keywords that have been tracked for a long while. And I look at how Black Friday was affecting things. And again, in the UK, we can see that if we look with search volumes, generic terms, Black Friday deals, those grow a lot more than terms like Zara UK or Farfetch. But if we look in terms of max reach, which is really reverse engineering the volume formula that Apple uses to hide a bit more how many impressions are available with a given keyword, what we see is that variations in maximum reach suggest brands do actually get a very nice bump in traffic from a seasonal event like Black Friday. So what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to have to decide, do we want to climb the peak of Black Friday through organic search or through paid search. If we want to go with organic search, the two pieces of advice I have are, number one, go after clusters, not just single terms. There's not just Black Friday deals, Black Friday UK. For some reason, people are really looking for something where they want to be sure that the discounts are going to be relevant to their countries. So look for clusters to maximize the places where you can go. The other part is be aware, especially in search. The battle is going to be won early. I have the example of one app that literally just decided to be Black Friday deals. They're an aggregator. There were 6 other apps with this one that were ranking in the top 10 for Black Friday, last Friday in the UK. So if you want to be conquering a generic term that's going to blow up because of seasonality, you have to consider that you're going to have to get up early to do so. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but you have to plan ahead. And you have to be willing to go the extra mile, because to prove to Apple, to prove to Google that your app is the most relevant for a keyword, you need to not just say, I have a discount somewhere in my app. You need to make the effort. Now, if we turn to paid search, we've already showed that branded terms actually grow a lot during seasonal events too. So the first thing we'd say, don't forget about them. It means don't forget about your competitors, don't forget about your own brand too. And that leads me to the two big mistakes I see when it comes to ASA and seasonality. First one is people increasing bids before they look at their daily budgets. If you increase your bids in Apple Search Ads before you increase your daily budgets, you're going to run out of budget faster. That's all. So make sure to start by looking at your daily budgets, plan your daily budgets accordingly, but look at that first. Second, you can spy on your competitors, which keywords they're after, and based on what you think their relevance is compared to yours for a given keyword, you might want to take a bet and decrease the bid. Because the whole point is the keyword is going to grow. The amount of impressions that will be available that day is going to be higher than usual. And so while everyone assumes there's going to be very high competition, and it's true, if all the competition focuses on let's bid high very early on, and everyone runs out of budget early, you're going to have a field day with the impressions toward the end of the day that are going to be very cheap. If we're talking about your own brand, you don't even need to wait for the end of the day. Your own brand is more relevant for your brand name than anyone else. At least it should be, I hope for you. If that's the case, then you have to consider who's going to be willing to pay a very high price, but you can take that auction and say, maybe I'm fine with one of my competitors winning early in the day by spending with a very high CPI. I'll still be able to go to capture more of the share of voice with a lower bid. And now, since we're on the topic of attacking competitors or defending your own brand, don't forget about CPPs. The last example is actually from Belgium, but Temu has been very smart about how they went about Black Friday in Belgium. Having a CPP on the word Amazon that literally says, for new users, we have a coupon. That, in my opinion, is smart because they know that on Black Friday, people are opportunistic. They may download more than one app. Making sure people notice you by putting a very nice $100 sign gift in your first screenshot is going to get them downloads. Now, in general, when it comes to changing your creatives for a seasonal moment, there are things that should be done for sure. There's also things that should be done smartly. And it's time that I tell you about my personal trauma, which is what I call the Halloween effect. Every year, lots of apps, lots of games decide that for Halloween, their icon should suddenly turn orange and feature some pumpkins. it has been the bane of my existence, because the problem I have with that is I don't know if it works. So I asked AppTweak's data science team again, is there any way we can find out about this? We only had time to work on a small sample size study. But we actually went through apps that changed their app icons in the US in 2023, in October. And of all the changes, we found 16 for which we could include the data of conversion rate, and for which we could say with certainty that these were icon changes that followed the Halloween effect. How many do you think had, what percentage do you think were the apps that had a significant improvement in their conversion rate because of this? Anyone thinks it's above 50%? Well, you'd be wrong. Or rather, we don't know for sure. The reality is there's a very good split. So I decided I wanted to either have a multiplier of the conversion rate in the 2 weeks after compared to 2 weeks before. That would be at least 1.1 or 0.9 to decide that it was a big factor here. And what we found is that there are cases where indeed conversion rate improves, cases where conversion rate changes but not so significantly that we could take any conclusion, and cases where it decreases. We don't have the full context, so it could be that the decreases are just these people went crazy with paid UA, brought in a lot of unqualified people, and maybe the icon was still not the worst idea ever. But what this points to is that changing a creative just for the sake of saying we change a creative for this seasonal event is not going to cut it. What I'd advise instead is that, well, first, remember to change stuff that's visible. If you are still changing your feature graphic in the Play Store while not having a video, you and I should talk. But changing screenshots where they matter is important. What's even more important is making sure that you position the seasonal event in the context of your app and not the other way around. It's not because your app is showing a pumpkin that it is relevant for Halloween. But if you're selling scary costumes for people and you show it as part of your most sold items on Amazon today, it's a different story. So in here, I went for different examples in Halloween. I went for Christmas, also to remind you again, seasonality is local, not global. Something I've learned researching this. In Japan, Christmas is a romantic holiday, and New Year's is a holiday that you spend with your family. In the US, you'd probably say the opposite. Or I don't know if someone has been thrilled to spend New Year's Eve with their parents lately. Also in Japan, fried chicken is a meal of choice for Christmas. I am not kidding you. This is apparently a real thing. So seasonality is local means that when you're going to be changing your screenshots, it should show things that are available in your apps, things that make people want to use your app because they are living something. Seasonality is about people too. So it's about their experience, and your app is going to benefit their experience. And it's not going to be the same experience depending on where you are in the world. Another thing to talk about is in-app events. I will say humbly that when it comes to in-app events that are very seasonal, any chance to push an in-app event, promotional content that relates to seasonality usually feels like a good thing to do. But every year I hear about shopping apps that feel scorned by Apple because their in-app event was rejected for Black Friday. Some apps have no problem. Some do. And sometimes the same app 2 years in a row will tell you, well, we had problems with this last year and this year we didn't, or vice versa. There is unfortunately no way to predict who your App Store reviewer is going to be and if they'll be nice or mean when it comes to, oh, but the guidelines say you shouldn't be advertising just a discount and you should be advertising something really new in your app. My best suggestion here is, if you know this can be a problem, consider how you can get around by making something new in your app or saying something is new at that time of year. I think Farfetch this year did something really smart. They released wish lists right around the time of Black Friday. And suddenly it's not about, oh, we have great discounts. That's why people are going to go in anyway. But now Apple has no problem with that. I don't have an illustration for the last point, but it's also something I want to add on the idea of using custom pages. Seasonal events can be divisive. The best one is Valentine's Day. And I'm not just talking about people who love or hate Valentine's Day. I'm also talking about people who have to say, I'm in a relationship, I need to be celebrating Valentine's Day. Or I am single right now. They can think, whether you're very happy or very sad about it is not of my concern. My point is, as a result of the divisions that some seasonal events create, you have different communities. Those communities are as many ways to segment your audience with custom pages. And this is something that happened while I was working in my previous company, a music streaming app called Deezer. We didn't have CPPs back then. But we ran UA on Valentine's Day with playlists for romantic occasions and also playlists for celebrating the bachelor life for anyone who just wanted to party. These are ways that you can play on seasonality, and the store plays a role here because your message can be aligned with custom pages. Now, I want to finish up by talking about what people don't want to talk about. The moment where the party is over, the lights turn off, and everyone leaves. There's not a whole lot you can do. At least that's usually what people start by thinking. The first thing I answer to that is, well, please set expectations. Don't share excuses instead. And that's because another bane of my existence is how much reporting I have to do. And I always feel bad when the reporting is, we compare months and months what happened. I see search traffic dropped 10% compared to last month. And then I end up saying, well, we did research it. It's a brand name. Traffic on brand has declined quite importantly compared to last month because of seasonality. This is hopefully a New Year resolution I will be able to hold. But something I want to do starting next year is make sure that in my monthly report, I'll start actually sharing projections, sharing what we expect is going to happen next month. Because having to justify, we got minus 10% search is one thing. Starting the month by saying, well, we're expecting minus 10% and we only had minus 8. I'm not going to say minus 8 is great, but being able to say, we knew this was going to happen, we possibly took action, and we actually were able to compare performance to expectations that are reasonable. That is something I think can be beneficial in how we work. Another thing that can be tried, this is more of exploration, but it's to try to find different angles because your app might not be popular because the seasonality might not play in your favor in principle. But you can always look for which are the popular apps at the moment, what are the popular trends, and look for ways to play on them to maybe just create a bit more awareness, create a bit of traffic. This is not a recipe that guarantees success, but if you know your traffic is going to decline anyway, if you have the resources, why not go after this? one thing I really love about DoorDash is that they have actually invested in seasonal marketing strategies and seasonal screenshots in the App Store. So they will go over different regular holidays, Mother's Day, Valentine's, etc. They'll also say, well, in the US, apparently football is big in September. We don't really have anything else to talk about. So why not actually associate us to something that's popular at the moment and potentially ride the wave? This year was the Olympics, so we had even more people trying. Tinder created passport mode to allow people to try and connect with pro athletes. Sorry, I'm still traumatized by breakdance. Canva also had something to just say, cheer with your team. These are things that, especially when we look at in-app events, shouldn't cost a lot of resources and can actually be ways to show you're being proactive about moments where you know the regular trend is that you're not the main focus of what people search for at the moment in the store. So these are things to consider. For the conclusion, I said I hoped that you guys would feel like there's things you can do as you leave. So I give you a quick roadmap. Don't worry about the pictures. You can get the slides, all the slides in the next one. But something that you can consider doing as you go back, as 2025 is going to begin, is align with people on what marketing initiatives you want to take because of seasonality. So in my opinion, you should start by deciding which countries you want to cover. Seasonality, once again, is local, not global. Then compile a list of calendar events for these markets. If you have no idea where to start, ChatGPT will. It's not perfect, but it will give you an idea where to start. And then you can just cross-check the events that were provided to you with your app's past performances, with your competitors' past performances, especially if you can find estimates for local competitors. I think it's going to be very useful. And that can help you create the forecast, as I mentioned, that is not only useful for setting expectations from your boss that, yes, next month is not going to look great, but more in general, create a forecast for when it's going to make sense to start investing in seasonal marketing. Score the different events based on the impact the event is having on the market, how much it fits your business model or your business, your app's theme, how much effort will be needed to come up with something. If you're not very developed in India and you have to learn a lot about Diwali before bringing a Diwali event to your app and to your app store, it might not be the top priority. And then basically you'll have a list of priority events to target. And that's when you go talk to the other marketing teams to make sure that you're going to be doing something, but they're also going to be doing something around that time and that everyone works together. So that way you can actually say, I did. Thank you all. If you want the slides, here is a QR code.